Hey, thanks for joining me here on Travelogue. And it's my second week doing this, and it's an honor to be a part of it. And so thanks for joining me. We're going to hang out for a few minutes here and see who logs in. And again, if you're uh, just checking in and watching, be sure to comment. I would love to hear from you as I'm getting to know a few of you, and a few of you sent me very fine and nice comments after the last show, and I appreciate that very much. The platform that we're using is a little new to me, but I've caught on quick, and it's helpful that the church that I pastor here in Wisconsin, we use a different program, but it's pretty similar to what is going on here. So it was a pretty easy thing to catch on to. But anyways, this time together, I want to talk about dreams. I want to talk about desires that you go for, and I want to share stories with you on how God can plant a dream in our life to pursue. But just because he plants a dream in our life doesn't mean it's going to be all peaches and cream. Okay, it doesn't mean that everything's going to go as smoothly as we would hope. Because quite honestly, what can happen is we can make the broad assumption that God planted a dream, and we end up smooth sailing right into it. And when we hit the end game, everything was fine, everything was good. That doesn't always happen. In fact, if you read your Bible, you will notice there are a lot of stories where God planted a dream and it was a rough road. I'm looking at you, Joseph. I'm looking at you, Samson. So, anyways, please feel free to comment as we talk and spend the next half hour together. Again, for those that don't know me, or maybe you're just tuning in, and I see we have a few people watching, I pastor a church up here in Wapaka, Wisconsin, and that is 2 hours north of Milwaukee. So, very cool little church. I've been here 16 years, and it's been a good ride. It's been a bumpy ride, been a hectic ride at times, but nonetheless a very good one. So yeah, last week we talked about the background of my story and how I got to be where I am today. And you'll have to excuse me if I'm shuffling notes a little bit, because another dream of mine actually just came to pass over the last probably 2 weeks. And today it's all culminating into one thing. So if you find me on Facebook, I actually posted a picture of myself at the place where everything culminates in this dream that God has given me to do. And I'm honored to be a part of it, to be quite frank with you. Let me share with you a little bit. Going way back, I'm 47 years old, just turned 47 last week. 47 years old. I started off in youth ministry and when I was 22 years old. So that's going back quite a few years. Before I was a youth pastor, and even during the early days of that, I was a music buyer for a Christian bookstore. Now, let me just say what kind of music buyer I was. I wasn't the guy that dealt with Word, Cordant, Provident, Sparrow, all of those labels. Okay, we had a different guy for that, and he would deal with those execs and record dealers and all that stuff. I was in charge of ordering the underground and the independent Christian music. Through that, I had some really good conversations. I got to know some awesome people. Case in point, here's an example. When I was working one day, it was a Tuesday morning, and Tuesday night is when I had my youth program. And this is when I still had to work 2 places in order to get a full-time income. And this band walks in. I didn't know them from Adam. Today, everybody probably knows them if you're following Christian music. And this band walks in and said, "Can you help us out? Our venue that we just booked that we're going to play tonight canceled. And so we are left high and dry with no place to go." I said, "Well, you actually met the right guy. I'm a youth pastor. My youth group meets tonight. We have about 85 kids." And then he said, "Can we play?" Well, it ends up that night we had a very young disciple play at our youth ministry. And so at the youth group, and the kids didn't know them from Adam. I barely knew who Disciple was, because this is when they just dropped the My Daddy Can Whip Your Daddy EP. So I worked with a lot of Christian artists. Some of the fun ones that I've had um, have been many to mention, and so it's been a good thing. Everything from punk to metal to rap, hip hop, from L.A. Symphony to Spyglass Blue. We've had all of them in our in for a concert, and so it worked out really well. That actually happened once with where we had youth group. Actually, two other times where bands came in and they got stiffed on their venue. I know that never happens, but they got stiffed. And so we ended up impromptu hosting LA Symphony, if you know that hip hop group, and another group, Project 86. So it's been a good run. So I take all of that, and recently I've been praying. And again, if you're just joining us, we're talking about dreams that God places in our heart. And recently I'm thinking to myself, I love pastoring. It's just something that's in me. It's something that I don't need to be a part of a church to minister, but I feel like this is what God's called me to do. But things have been getting just a little dry. Like I love it. I enjoy doing it, but I want to do more in my community. I want to do more for the city. And so I began praying. I started thinking, praying that God would just open the door for me to serve in some way, to be there and to bring a light to our city. Well, last year a new rock station started in our city, and it's not a Christian rock station. They play everything from Mudvayne to Motley Crue to whatever. I mean, from modern to older stuff. And so I pitched them a show. I literally put together something and I prayed over it before I emailed it. How many times do we actually do that, by the way, where we feel an inkling from God to do something, and the first thing we do is go to prayer because God's planted it in our heart? Because Proverbs chapter 16, verse 3 says, "Commit to the Lord whatever you do, and he will establish your plans." And so that just kind of stood out to me, and I said, I'm just gonna pray over this email, then I'm gonna send it out to the station manager. Well, I got an email back from the station manager, and on their sister station, they air my messages from church every Sunday after I polish them up and everything. It's amazing how good of a speaker I sound like when I'm not live, because I can get out all the ums, uhs, okays, things like that. Call me Joel Osteen. Maybe not. So I ended up hearing back from this radio station. They said, "Bob, we really, really like the direction that you're heading with this program." And then they took it one step further. They said, "We don't necessarily want you to pay for this program because it's going to help our station. So we're going to try to find you sponsors for this program." What this program is and they're starting it off as a half hour as a trial for a month. And what it is just Christian rock and metal for a solid half hour. I can say whatever I want. I can play whatever I want. In fact, today I just shipped off the first show, and to the folks via Dropbox, and it'll air this Sunday 8 a.m. on the Foundry 100.7 FM. If you're listening to this broadcast right now and you want to hear this show, you can tune in at 8 a.m. Central Time at wapakarocks.com. And so I began putting stuff together, started putting music together and everything. And God just he did. He just brought everything about. And why is that? Because it was a dream. I had no desire, no plan to host an actual music show. I don't consider myself radio friendly. But nonetheless, it took place. And so looking forward to doing that. And I know that when God plants something in your heart, I've been around the block enough times to know that when he plants something in our heart, we need to act on it. It may be something well within our wheelhouse that we're comfortable with, that we know inside and out, or it may be something just a little different. And I think that's where I want to go today, is talking about dreams and how it pertains to our daily walk with Christ, and how he is. I think he's constantly planting things in our lives. I mean, many of the people that are watching right now, at some point, God planted it in your life to do something. And I think it's only fair. I think it's right for us to pursue those things. One of the stories that stand out to me most is that of Moses. You know, when the misconception in Christianity, when people feel like God's prompting them to do something, is to um, question it, to look at it, to say, I don't know if that's right for me. Why would God, I'm a mechanic. Let's just hypothetically, I'm a mechanic. Why in the world would he want me to head up a kids ministry? Why would he want me to go overseas and do some missions work? Because I'm a mechanic. And Moses makes this all very relatable. And there's other people throughout scripture as well that, quite honestly, serves as a good example and makes me feel, I don't know, human, natural, whatever. When Moses was confronted by God in the burning bush, and Moses didn't just go happy, happy, joy, joy down that path that God chose for him. No, Moses fought it tooth and nail. He he came up with reasons why he shouldn't be used. He had all of these things, and I find myself in that situation as well. Um, if you're tuning in over one of our venues, be it Outlaw Pulpit Facebook page or Travelogue Facebook or YouTube, feel free to post thoughts and questions or things that God has placed in your life that he planted in your heart, and you're dreaming about it and you are wanting to see it go. And so I began to put this show together for this local radio station, and everything went smoothly. We put in music from all different artists of past and today, from the Christian hair metal era of bands like Shout to more modern stuff like Demon Hunter and stuff like that. So, and what is it? Is it, am I looking at it as the music's going to save people? No, I hope I don't offend anybody, but I'm going to just draw a hard line and say, no, I don't think music's going to save people. In fact, I think I put a lot of stock into what the Apostle Paul says, that when he says it's through the foolishness of preaching that people get saved. But this radio show serves as an on-ramp to relationship with Christ. They're going to hear music. They're going to hear stuff that they don't normally hear. Normally, they're inundated with Soundgarden, Alice in Chains, and Motley Crue, stuff like that. And now they're going to hear a song called Jesus Wept by Demon Hunter. They're going to hear, different things by Project 86 or whoever. But all of that leads to the end game, which is presenting the gospel of love to people and salvation. And so it's fun to see a dream like that come to pass. And wherever it goes, it goes. Once your foot's in the door, I just leave it up to God, and He's going to direct our paths. That sounds kind of scriptural, actually. Now that you mention it. So yeah, the radio show went very smoothly, but let's talk about when it doesn't go smoothly. I'm thinking of the specific example of Joseph. Here's a guy that God planted in his heart that he's going to do some great things, but it was a long, long path for him, and he experienced a lot of hurts. He experienced a lot of questioning in his life. Joseph, sold into slavery, abandoned by his family, and ultimately we know how that all came back around in the end of that story. But it's reminiscent too. I mean, I've been around the church block enough times that I know that God planted in my heart to be a pastor. But at the same time, I know that He told me to go for it, but He didn't really necessarily tell me all of the bumps and bruises along the way that I would experience. And so it makes the journey difficult. It makes the journey hard, but at the same time, it makes the journey sweet, because we know where we've come from and we know where we're going. When I became a youth pastor at age 22, and I shared a little bit about this last week, I really didn't honestly know a whole lot. I was raised in a church where it was basically Mayberry. Everybody was fine. Everything looked good. It was stable. They did a little bit outreach. That would be my one gripe. There wasn't enough. But every week they hit budget. It just seemed like through a kid's and a teenager's eyes, everything was fine. Now I realize it wasn't. But myself leaving that church to take on my first youth pastorate, that's how I figured things would be. And they quickly got my attention that is not how things are going to always be. In fact, the church world can be a vicious place if you're on the behind the scenes or staff side of life. There was a lot of things that took place that I will share with you. Marie Groves from YouTube. She says, hi from Eden, North Carolina. Hi, Marie. Glad you can join us, and I'm glad that we're able to meet. So thank you for posting. Jason Walker says, the largest issue I've brought upon myself is trying to make the dreams happen in my understanding of strength, not making an equivalency, but like Abram and Hagar. Jason, thank you. I find myself that your story is my story. Okay. Do you remember the old kindergarten principle, by the way? When you point at somebody, there's three more pointing back at you. So I point at you, Jason, but at the same time, I'm pointing back at myself, because this does happen. We pursue something that we want to do, and it may be well-intentioned in that God has given you the abilities to possibly do that. But it's like you said, when it's under our own understanding and strength, sometimes it will fall short. Other times it won't. And boy, I'm as I'm talking, I'm trying to think of examples in my life where this has happened, because I will share them with you to just to let you know that, it happens. It happens quite often in the life of a Christian. One minister said this: for every 1,000 things we try as a church, 1 or 2 of them might work. And I think that's true of the Christian life. We try different things. We think it's going to be a good thing. And well, quite honestly, it may not go anywhere, but other times it may go other places. Yeah, in ministry, when I started off as a youth pastor at 22 years old, I just had this, I was looking at it through the honeymoon phase, as we say, when we officiate a wedding, through rose-colored glasses. Everything's perfect. Everything's fine. And then you do your first concert, let's say. And I shared a little bit about this. When we had Disciple in, which I shared at the beginning of this episode, it was good. It was amazing. The music was spot on. The word shared was really good. It challenged the kids, but it was loud. Okay. The church that we were in was big stained glass windows right in the heart of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. No parking lot. It was just landlocked. And we had neighbors literally up and down the road sitting on their porches listening to this concert. The very next day, the pastor pulls me aside. He goes, "Don't do that again." in my mind, I was laughing. And honestly, knowing, if I would have known what was coming down the road, I probably would have walked at that point, but I didn't. Marie Grove says, "May the 4th be with you, and Feliz Cinco de Mayo, Pastor Bob. Tamales are always good, no matter what day it is." Okay. I agree with you, but let me point out something about something with tamales. Number one, I love them. Now I do. But this church that I'm talking about, that I was on staff at, it was actually a church that was just outside of the inner city, south side of Milwaukee. Milwaukee, Wisconsin is very, very segregated. That's where I grew up. It down to the block, you can literally tell who's going to live where. So south side, downtown Milwaukee, a heavily Hispanic area. And when I got my first bachelor pad, a Hispanic lady in the church gave me a plate of tamales, homemade tamales. And they were good when I learned how to eat them. It's true. I took them home, never had a tamale in my life. And I just grabbed it out of the package and started eating. And I'm like, how do you work through this corn husk? And quite honestly, I couldn't. So I threw the whole batch out. I think that was pretty embarrassing for me to go back to the lady when she said, "How'd you like them?" I said, I didn't. I threw them out. And then she finally taught me how to properly eat a tamale. So thank you, Cinco de Mayo and Marie Groves. Tim Cruz says it's also timing and cyclical. Yahweh took Israel out of Egypt in full battle array, but took them the long way around because they weren't ready for the Philistines. Yeah. And Tim, by the way, says I did the same thing with tamales. Thank you. We should have a support club, a support group called Tamales Anonymous. My name is Bob, and I don't know how to eat tamales. So, Tim, back to your statement that Israel, yes, there's a time, and I think that was maybe the case with Joseph as well, that God plants it in our heart, but the dream isn't to come to fruition quite yet because there's a long road ahead of us. Being raised in the church culture, you would hear of kids oftentimes being called to the mission field, sometimes through the hype of the service, which I really didn't care for, but other times it was a genuine call that God called them into be a missionary or pastor. And it would be years until they finally saw that happen and they were finally off to another foreign land or a church to become a pastor. And so, it's definitely something that God does. He works on us. He molds us. He gets us ready for this. And, like I was talking about this Christian rock metal show that I'm starting. It's something that I've thought about for years, honestly. But it just seemed right when this station started in our city for me to email them and just ask, hey, and I see through it now. It's hard to see how God orchestrates everything when you're in the middle of the concerto. Okay. But when it's all over, you can look back on it and see that it was a beautiful symphony that God orchestrated everything together for this point where the dream is now going to surpass, is going to happen. And so, and I say that because with this show that I'm doing, it took a lot of knowledge. It took a lot of know-how from things on my end on how to run different programs here on my Mac to developing relationships with bands and artists and stuff. And now we're finally at a place where we're going to launch. And I truly believe God's in it. So yeah, Tim, I totally appreciate that comment. And that it's they just weren't ready for the Philistines. And that's very true. Keep the comments coming. I would love to hear from everybody on this and what your thoughts are regarding the issue of pursuing our dreams. Some of and what gets me jazzed is, and it should get a lot of Christians jazzed, is when we hear about people's dreams. It's part of their testimony of where they're at right now. And so it's an important thing to share with one another. I always enjoy when people get excited over whatever they do, that they're passionate about it. We went through the McDonald's drive-through the other day, and there was probably a 17-year-old kid. And typically you show up at McDonald's and you just, here's your burger, $10, whatever, $4 to $5, whatever. And this guy, he greeted, he was happy. It was good customer service. And I told my wife, I said that, boy, it's refreshing to see somebody who takes pride in what they're doing. I don't know if this guy was a follower of Christ or not, but it's something that when we know that God's planted something in our life, that we should go for it and look at every opportunity as a building block for that dream to come to fruition. So it's really good. And that was my approach during my 8 years as a youth pastor, is that this is where I'm at. I'm not going to be a pastor that jumps around from church to church, because quite honestly, it's all the same, work wise and stuff for the most part. But I'm going to stick with it, and I'm going to do it well. And God blessed it. He took a youth group of about 12 kids to 85 in a church that was less than that. And it was a good run. Little did I know that he was setting me up for things to come through the Christian bookstores that I was music buyers for, and up until the current time. And it really reminded me of that verse that I read earlier, that in Proverbs 16:3, that whatever you want to do, commit it to the Lord, and he will establish your plans. So, all right. Enough with me. Let's talk to you a little bit. And again, feel free to comment. I can see some people are watching on Facebook and some on YouTube, of course, like Marie from North Carolina. I'm actually going to be close to North Carolina in at the end of the month. I'll be down in Nashville, so it's going to be a fun trip. I'm going down to visit some friends there through a ministry that I've known for a long time. So looking forward to that. Let me see here. I just lost my screen. Okay, I got it here. One of the other dreams that I didn't think I had in me, but it was there, was becoming the head pastor of a church. Quite honestly, I was not looking forward to that at all. And Nashville, Tennessee, Marie, not Nashville, North Carolina. In fact, I didn't know there was a Nashville, North Carolina. So interesting. Just like Milwaukee, there's a Milwaukee, I think, in Oregon as well. And yeah. But yeah, it was one of these things where I was getting more and more disgruntled with youth ministry, and specifically not the ministry side of it. I've always maintained, no matter what church I've been on staff in, and it's only been two, working behind the scenes and politics and everything, that can get kind of sketchy, can be rough. But at the same time, I realized that that it was building me up to become a pastor. So Alan, you said I'm in Nashville at the end of the month too. That's cool. Maybe we should meet up. The reason I'm going down there is that Bob Beeman is starting to do these almost monthly barbecues at his house, and it's all the old sanctuary crowd and everything. And we've developed a good friendship over the years, and I quite honestly could use a little getaway just to refresh and renew. And so that's where I'm going, is down there. So yeah, that'd be cool. You should come over and crash. Oh, okay, May 20th to 23rd. Okay, I'll be there over the Memorial Day weekend. They say you should come over and crash the barbecue. that'd be awesome. Actually, you'd see you'd see some of the old faces from those days. Of course, Bob. You'd see Jim Laverty from Barron Cross, and I think Jamie Rowe goes to those from Guardian. So more of the hair metal. I realize hair metal, punk, two different things. So, but can't we all just get along? So, that's cool. So speaking at Objective again, huh? I've heard some good things about that conference. I'm a stone's throw from Bill Cloud. Okay. Very, very good. So Tim Cruz says, the other thing I have to remind myself, that we always read scripture backwards. We forget that the other people in scripture didn't know the details and outcome. The years happen between turning the pages of your Bible. When I stand in the ashes of my dreams, I can't always see the Lord. And in some cases, I can't see the point. Yeah, and that's very true. We always see the end result, and that's kind of taught perhaps unintentionally from little kid up, that we just teach Jonah and the whale. So we teach the victorious part at the end, not the part where he ran and really didn't want to hang out with the Ninevites. We teach the ark. It was a happy day on the ark, whatever. And we forget to teach about the struggle leading up to that. So yeah, very good. Alan says we were all together in South California back in the day. Yeah, I'm sure you guys were. I mean, that's kind of where it seems like that's where it all started out, is back there. So Cleveland, Tennessee, and Tim says Alan will only go if Stryper is there. Yes, I agree. When I hear the word Alan, I think of the Yellow and Black Attack instantly. So nice. Yeah, so it's interesting, and but look at Alan says OMG. Yeah, it's but even those days, you look back on everything that took place, and it's just an amazing thing to think about how God has a real way of putting all of this together for our good and for the betterment of us, and to ultimately further the gospel and to share the love of Christ with people. Well, I can't believe we're already at the end of a half hour. I'm going to do 2 more of these. And we might talk about expanding to an hour with this program, because it is such a joy to get together with you. But again, if you have questions or you want me to address certain things in upcoming shows, email me. It's on the screen here, and I realize it might be a little small, but it's outlawpulpit@gmail.com. And if you have a suggestion for me and a direction you'd like me to go in topically, I would be happy to address that. And again, it's always a joy to get together with you. And I hope you have a fantastic day.
The views and opinions expressed during our broadcasts are solely those of the broadcast producers, hosts, and/or guests, etc., and are not necessarily the views or opinions of the Travelogue Network, its sponsors, or affiliates.